Alright, Shalom Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Okay, Hebrews, we getting a whole lot of Hebrews, man, in this day and time. It seemed like they should know that we Israelites, the people from the transatlantic slave trade, was not in the Americas, man, before the transatlantic slave trade, for the simple fact that we were exposed to certain technology that just couldn't just go away, man. I'm talking about the technology that we was exposed to couldn't go away, and you can see that in Africa also, and then you can see it in our homeland where we are originally from, you know, the land that they call Israel today, or Palestine, you know, the promised land that was promised to Abraham's descendants, his sons' descendants, from Isaac and Jacob, and their descendants forever. So that's our home. And then, you know, I explained how we got expelled from the promised land. Man, this video is not going to be too much about Ashkenazi and the Sephardi's, but that I want to tackle this America issue, because for some reason, man, you got a lot of people, man, be believing in that ruckus, you know, and it's like, man, it's simple. Man, it's simple to understand that we builders, the people from the transatlantic slave trade, was not in the Americas before the transatlantic slave trade. I'm talking about, that's just simple common sense, because of the technology that we was exposed to. You know, we was exposed to axles, wheels, carts. Axles, wheels, carts. Man, I'm talking about this knowledge of this couldn't just go away. And we wouldn't just leave nowhere, you know, and then get over here in the Americas and then didn't build, you know, have carts and wheels and so forth. And then to try to say that we, you know, it's pigmented peoples all over the face of the earth, as I'm going to show that, you know, more is, you know, it was Moors in India and Iran and all kind of places, and that how that Moors just wasn't in Spain and Morocco, and that how that the Spaniards, the Portuguese, when they did come over, the Sephardi Jews, they would have pigmentation, and then some of the Israelites be getting confused with them, as well as the natives having pigmentation. But the natives were not agriculturalists. I mean, they were not husbandry, like domesticated animals and so forth. The most thing that a native ever domesticated was maybe a wolf, you know, where they done went down in a wolf den after he was gone and snatched one of his puppies or something. And they snatched one of the puppies and then raised it into like a little dog or something. That's the only thing that the natives done domesticated. I'm talking about, they ain't domesticated no bisons, man, no deers, or none of that stuff. Like I said in one video, it would have been impossible for us Israelites to have been in the Americas and we not domesticate no buffalo. You know, ain't nowhere in the world that it would have been some buffaloes around and we Israelites didn't domesticate them, like snatch they little cubs and calves and then raise them and then just keep doing that. You know, we gonna get the animals and domesticate them. You know, you'll see a Hebrew riding around on buffaloes or using buffaloes for labor purposes and so forth. It's a lot of stuff that the natives didn't have, that we were exposed to, that you can see that when we was brung over here from Africa, that when we was brung to the Americas, that you can see our building and the technology that we had, because we basically built this country. You know, we built this country. Me and the Caucasians are the Sephardi Jews, are those folks who came to America that took it over. They didn't go get the natives and have the natives to build all these massive structures and so forth that was found in the colonies. You even got some of these structures that exist today. Some of the synagogues that exist today that our ancestors built, that was brung from the transatlantic slave trade to the Americas, and how that those structures still here, and that how no natives built them, and that how natives didn't build no houses and so forth, and how that they lived in animal skins and so forth. You know, man, to not gonna make it hard for you Hebrews to lie on our history when everything is plain to see. You know, some Hebrews will create some history so they can sound smart, sound right, but they just be using the Jewish myths that they done created. You know, they'll go create a story and publish it in the newspaper. Now all of a sudden, it become true. Even if they did that 200 or 300 years ago, it could have been a joke. But how that, you know, some Hebrews take some of the things that was written in history that was out of our control and accept it as facts and truth. And I'm telling you, the only truth that you can depend on, even though that it's been translated multiple times, man, our history is probably the most translated history on the face of this earth, and it's what you call the Tanakh. You know, that if you don't have history that line up with Tanakh, man, you're going to be throwed off, just plain and simple. And that how that our history is the most translated history on the face of this earth, and that how that we are the people in the Tanakh that was exposed to the window buildings, buildings with windows, houses, and carts and chariots and mining stones and so forth. All that can be found out the Tanakh. I ain't even had to go pick out no specific verses to show this, because it's all throughout biblical history about wheels, windows, houses with doors, and so forth, and animals, and us raising sheeps and goats, and, you know, sacrificing animals and so forth. Me, you had to domesticate animals and so forth in order to have animals readily available for sacrifices and so forth. Now we know that the natives, man, they ain't, man, the clove culture, or whatever they call them, natives that come from, you know, the Alaska region and so forth, man, that them folks ain't have no carts, they ain't have no domesticated animals. They didn't have no domesticated animals. They didn't be around houses to out in the west to later on, after the Spaniards and so forth, and then came and mixed in with the natives, and then how that the natives lived in animal skins. Now, you know, man, the majority of the slaves in the South probably gonna have a little native mixed in our heritage because of what happened during the slavery days. I can easily pull up how the natives were equally slave owners, just like the Caucasians was, that the natives owned the slaves, and sometimes that they was brutal, and then how that the natives tried to hold out on releasing the slaves. Now, for some reason, man, you have these Israelites, man, that be confused, maybe because they have a native ancestry, and they be trying to think that they can escape their heritage by tapping into that the natives were free, and how that they want to be free and not have the slave stigma attached to them. You know what I'm saying? And then how did they foolish, because what happened in the slavery is finna be a badge of honor coming soon, because we already showing them the curses, and how that we are the Israelites. You know, it's a done deal on the Israelite Brotherhood site on showing how we are the Israelites. Man, I'm talking about this elementary. I got so many videos explaining this. But, you know, man, I want to go into how that the natives, man, that the natives were not Israelites. Man, impossible for the natives to be Israelites. Man, impossible for the natives meant to be the Israelites, and we are the Israelites. And that how the Israelites our people come over to the Americas with know-how, and that was one of the main reasons why they captured us to enslave us. It's because that they got this land right here, this new Egypt, and all the untapped resources, and they knew how lazy that they was, going back to the curses, the put on Cain and so forth, but because they got a Cain mixture in them, and then how that they was lazy, and then how that they look for some peoples to exploit and rob, because in Europe, man, that's all they did was rob they peoples and enslave them and so forth, man. And this is the ironic thing of it all, is that the people in Europe got free from their serfdom and from their bondage, and then got over here to the Americas and then enslaved the peoples under the same type of brutality, even worse, that they was under. Whereas they could work for their freedom here in Europe, whereas we was chattel slavery. It's like being owned like some animals, chattel slavery. And then how that your slave owner had life and death over you, whereas the serfdoms and the peoples, that was up under that system had a little legalness attached to them, and they can get a little, legal help arguing in the court about the unjustness of them. But how chattel slavery, man, it was nothing like it on the face of this earth, and it was the first time that it had happened. And basically, the Tanakh curses that Prophet Moses outlined that would be on the Israelites, man, it explained what would happen to the Israelites after the covenant was broken. And that's how we find ourselves in this unfortunate situation here in America in captivity, is because we are descended from the peoples, the Israelites, that broke the covenant during the Babylonian Wars, the BC days, and I'm going to get into all this. Got to keep going over this because, man, Hebrews fail to realize what's going on, man, and they steady believing in them whack stories, them stories, man, that don't make no sense. When you look at the culture that we Israelites was exposed to, that's like I'm going to go find, man, the biblical verses, man, with windows. Man, I'm talking about, man, what natives had some windows, houses with some windows over here, man, before the Sephardic, the conquistadors and all them came with the carts and the animals, the sheeps and the goats. What natives had houses with windows and so forth? None of them. You know what I'm saying? But throughout Tanakh history, man, you will see that, you know what I'm saying? But they ain't even have to go pull up all the verses. They got this readily available on a computer, how you could just look and see how we had windows, man. I'm talking about windows everywhere on houses and windows, and a window is a common understanding with the meaning that a window is some glass. Man, it was one of the Israelite kings. I'm going to try to find it that fell through his glass window. And then, he went and asked the enemies for some help, and what would happen to him, which caused his death. Almighty Yah caused him to suffer. But how we had windows, make the windows at gates, and thy gates cubicles, and thy borders of pleasant stones. Man, we had windows. Look, Jeremiah, for death is come into our windows, and is entered into our palaces, to cut off the children from without, and the young men from the streets. Now, I'm talking about he describing windows and palaces and so forth. You know what I'm saying? So what natives had windows and palaces? Look, this said, I would build me a wide house. Look, this is Jeremiah 22 verse 14. This said, I will build me a wide house in a large chambers, and cutteth me out windows. Look, windows, and it is sealed with cedar, and painted with varnish. Me, we had painted houses windows, houses with doors, windows with painted rooms and so forth, like you have now today. We had this, all this in the Tanakh. Man, so ain't no way in the world that we could have been in the Americas, man, before the transatlantic slave trade, knowing that we could build windows, and then knowing that our enemies took us to build these houses right here. Look, the first synagogues, man, in the United States, man, were built by slaves. Man, the first synagogues, man, the Sephardi's, man, the Sephardi's ain't built no synagogues when they first pull up. The first ones was built by slaves, and one of the main one that dude Aaron Lopez built is still standing today. You know, and he was one of the most turbulent slave capture men in history. You know what I'm saying? And how his synagogue is still standing. And then they got a list, man, all the synagogues are when they first ones come in, and you're going to see a whole bunch of them, men, that's during the slavery times. During the slavery times, all the synagogues that was built in the United States, man, before and probably after the 1800s was built by slaves. Without a question that the slaves built just about every synagogue in the United States. As well as, look, man, the slaves built, man, the White House. You know what I'm saying? Men in the White House. You know what I'm saying? The White House was built by slaves. Look, you see them rooms right there. Now what natives built this? What European then captured some natives to build the White House? And that it was millions of natives here. Millions of natives here. And they ain't built nothing like this. But yet, the slaves, the people who they captured during the transatlantic slave trade, built this. You know what I'm saying? I just showed you in the Tanakh how we built palaces and had palaces and so forth. You know, that was one of the reasons for the Egyptians to hold the Hebrews in bondage, is that we was making bricks. Man, we was making bricks. You know what I'm saying? We was making bricks for the Egyptians. And the Egyptians knew how to make brick houses. Man, make brick houses. So the Israelites was making bricks for the Egyptians, as recorded in Tanakh history. When we went into bondage, that was what they had us making bricks. Egypt was selling bricks, and they was making brick houses. So we was exposed to a culture of building. Impossible for any Israelite to have been in the Americas and did not build any of these things. Impossible, because we was exposed to it in this overabundance of materials in the Americas. Overabundance of materials. Man, it's so much, man, it was so much wood here, man, before the Europeans pulled up. Man, there was so much stones and gold everywhere. I'm talking about all type of stuff. We knew about gold. We knew about gold because we had gold crowns and gold chains and so forth. And gold was part of our trade, and America had gold. You see what happened to man, the natives in the gold states like California. You know, you see what happened to them. Gold everywhere, wood everywhere. Man, I'm talking about we can make glass, man. Man, they got sand and stuff, man. We had glass and so forth. But how we had windows, doors, steps. Ain't no natives had none of that. So, you know, when these folks say that we the natives, man, they telling a lie, because it can be shown how we left the promised land and went into Africa. And then I tell you, Israelites, our first derogatory name was Gramentian. And then how that they had slaves over here called by that name. You know, your enemy ain't gonna tell you your real history, but look at this here. Man, these are some of the things that the slaves built. Man, the slaves built the White House. Now, what natives built the White House? Now, when it was understood that the slaves built this, the people from the transatlantic slave trade, so it would have been impossible for us to been in the Americas before the transatlantic slave trade, because we would have been building things like this, man. We the same people. And then we mixed a little bit, but we the same people. We the same people. Now what natives then built structures like this? What natives built structures like this, man? We give them folks too much credit because that they was whooped on by them Caucasians. By the Sebhardis took the land from the natives and so forth to trick them out of the great percentage of the land. And then how that the natives were idol worshippers. Idol worshippers, man, you can't worship no nature stuff and then think to run across a people that believe in Almighty Y'all thinking that you gonna survive. You ain't, no matter what they did. You know, it's the other peoples that came after. You know what I'm saying? After them folks done stole the land and then they done invited some of their relatives over, then that's when all the killings and the, stuff went down, because here you got these serfdom, these peoples that's in servitude get a chance to go to some land and take some land from some folks that ain't educated, that don't know how to build and ain't got no structures and stuff, don't really know nothing about war, ain't got no iron tools to men to fight with and stuff. So you know that they gonna get it, and that's what happened to them. All right, look here. Look, man, they got all kind of structures that our ancestors built here in the Americas. Man, look, Capitol Hill. Man, we built Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill is built by the slaves. Capitol Hill is built by the slaves. You know, the slaves built it. You know what I'm saying? The U.S. Capitol, more than 30 years to build, from 1793 all the way to, you know what I'm saying? But while it was not clear how many slaves helped build it, many slaves built it. The white folks ain't built nothing. You know what I'm saying? They ain't built nothing. They ain't built nothing. Look, a Statue of Freedom atop the Capitol, but we didn't get no freedom. We ain't get no freedom. Look, the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, the slaves built it. Man, the slaves built it. They thought that the slaves were owned by Matthew Washington, a former President Washington's wife. You know what I'm saying? And then look at this structure right here. And then what natives then built structures like this, men, before the transatlantic slave trade started, or before the Europeans come over here? What natives then built something like this? Now to say that we was here, man, but before the Europeans came, and that we are indigenous to America, man, it's kind of dogging us out, man. It's throwing dirt on us. It's throwing dirt on us because we could build. We could build houses and so forth. And how that's throwing dirt on us, saying that we was in the Americas and we couldn't build no houses and no pallets, and that we stayed in caves and stayed in animal skins. And it's well documented how the natives live. And you Negroes can't come back and undo their history. You'll try to. That's like you Negroes try to undo biblical history and try to make yourselves into some other peoples. Man, we quick to do that, man. We quick to go latch on to somebody else's culture and then claim it as our own. And then the culture that we supposed to be claiming, we're running hide from. You know what I'm saying? That's like if you tell one of them lost Israelites that they are the children Israel and show them some proof, which is the most glorious thing on the face of the earth. Man, you got people's none died all over this earth. The most people's none died in any war is all the peoples that's been put to death in relations to the Israelite heritage, whether it's through Islam, Christianity, or Judaism. All those religions break off the real Israelites' heritage, and that how that those religions was created after the covenant was broken, by how it is associated with the Israelite heritage, and how all those millions, probably billions of peoples done died, and then how that these Negroes, these blind Israelites that was raised over here in captivity, that don't want to accept that we the Israelites, man, start claiming other folks' heritage. And we quick to do that. We quick to claim other folks' heritage. We'll do it in a heartbeat, and then they start making up some history for it. But like I said right here, Tanakh gonna make it hard for you Hebrews to lie, man, on history when everything is plain to see. You know, Hebrews will create some history so they can sound right and smart using myths, Jewish myths. So you Hebrews that they try to say that we was in the Americas, man, before the transatlantic slave trade, man, you're throwing dirt on us. You're throwing dirt on us, and how that ain't no good thing because we can build, as I showed that how we built all these structures. All these structures built by us. You know, all these structures built by us. They take, look, Wall Street. Look, the whole wall. Look, you see that building right there? Our ancestors built that building. Slaves built that building. It's during the slavery era. Now, what Native American then built Wall Street, and then they been here. Me before the Caucasians pulled up, the natives been here, had the whole land to themselves, and they ain't built nothing but this right here. This is what the natives built. This is what the natives built. I'm gonna show you what the natives built. This is what the natives built right here. This is what the natives built. And many had little round houses, but this is what they built. This is what the natives lived in. Man, this is what the natives lived in. You see that? Some animal skins. They ain't domesticate no crops. They ain't have no cotton. Man, we had all kind of crops. That's what the natives lived in. Now, how in the world is them gonna be some Israelites from the transatlantic slave trade that don't know how to build nothing? Or how is them gonna be us that made it to the Americas that had all that technology with building and so forth as outlined in the Bible? Now, you know, like I say, Israelites, man, want to help. Man, they want to help the natives and say that we y'all and y'all us. Y'all us. We y'all and y'all us. But that's false because our history is outlined in the Tanakh. Man, it's a clear pattern of how we left the promised land, which is a skip and a hop going into Egypt, and then from Egypt into the Sahara. Egypt is part of the Sahara, and then how we was enslaved from Africa, and how we had technology in Africa, the same technology that you see, you know, that we built for them folks, we had for ourselves, you know what I'm saying, by whatever materials that we had. Man, we had a whole bunch of houses in the Sahara. And then how did they bring us over here in the Americas? Because of our know-how. You see, and we built the same things. And how that we didn't walk around looking like this. We didn't walk around looking like this with no animal skins and feathers all on us. I ain't knocking the natives. That's their culture. That's their culture, and I'm happy for them. That's what they did. That's what they do. That's not us. That's not us. And for you Israelites to keep trying to grab on to a native heritage, your day is coming. Your day is coming. And that's like the natives. Man, they ain't had nothing. And then now all of a sudden, you got these so-called black folks saying that they Israelites, and then putting them on a pedestal with the peoples in the Bible, and then how the natives gonna grab on to that. They ain't never had nothing. They lived in tents and teepees and so forth. So you know they gonna try to grab on to a biblical heritage, but they ain't gonna be able to hold on to it because, like I say, that we Israelites was exposed to building. Man, it's houses, windows, and the temples and so forth that we had built, and that how this is not it, and that how we ain't living no teepee, we ain't living no animal skins and so forth. So you Israelites can cut that mess out. You Israelites can cut that mess out. Like I say, Wall Street, look, man, the slaves built this. They'll tell you the slaves built Wall Street. They ain't got no problem telling you this. Wall Street was named after an actual wall which slaves built in such and such. They're also used as a slave market in Wall Street. This was one of the largest in the country. You know, so man, look, the slaves built all this. You know, them folks ain't did no building. You know, the slave captures and slave owners not gonna build nothing when they can get a slave to do it that know how to do it, and all they got to do is kick back and watch it be built. Look, this rented slaves rented slaves built this church. The slaves helped construct the various version of this church, which was finished in 1698. Now, what natives building structures like this now? What natives building structures like they ain't building no structures like this. So you Hebrews just talking about that we was in the Americas, men before the transatlantic slave trade. You telling a lie. You telling a lie. Look, man, all this stuff. Look, they even got a synagogue. Remember, get that synagogue. Look, this Travion was built in 1719. It's one of the oldest buildings in Manhattan. You know what I'm saying? The slaves, built by slaves. It was built by slaves. You know, the transatlantic slave trade, they ain't talking about no natives. They ain't say they would make the distinctions between the natives and the slaves, and that how ain't no natives built this right here, and that how we come over here building. Did you see that's fresh, man? That's almost fresh off the slave ship. That's 100 years later. Now, like I say, that synagogue gonna be here. Gonna be here way before. I'm talking about, they got 1658. Man, I'm talking about we in the Americas, man, probably about a good 50, 60 years already. But how ain't no natives built none of this? They ain't built none of these buildings right here. And the natives been here a long time. Look, all right, let's see, look, natives ain't built this. Ferdinand Hall was built in 1740. It was known as the Candle of Liberty. You know, the slaves built that. And then what natives then built this structure? Ain't no natives built this. The transatlantic slave trade peoples built this. The people who are called African Americans and blacks today. You know, look at this right here, man. I'm talking about all this. Look, Fort Sumter in Sumter in South Carolina. The slaves built all this famous stuff. Look, Howard Law, built in 1817, was founded by Isaac Rudd Jr., a slave owner. And I'm talking about this Harvard Law School, built by the slaves, and how we didn't get no justice. Now, the slaves built the place where all the notable lawyers and law professors and the people who set the whole law thing down, and how did we ain't get no justice, but the slaves built this. Now, what Native American then built this? Even built structures like this? Huh? What natives built this? We come over here with making glass technology and building houses with roofs upstairs, downstairs, working with concrete and marble and so forth. We've been doing it since the 1400 BC, since we was in Egypt, in Exodus Egypt, how we was exposed to all that. And then what slaves built this? What natives built this? You know what I'm saying? We know the slaves built it, but what natives built this? Ain't no natives built none of these structures. None of these structures. You know what I'm saying? Look, Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. You know what I'm saying? Georgetown University sold 200. Look, they sold 272 slaves and used the money, which today is about $3-some million, to build it. And then the slaves built it. The descendants of the slaves who had been sold, and then used the slaves, they descendants, to build a place. And then this is Georgetown University. You know what I'm saying? So it's a whole lot of stuff going on. Look, the University of North Carolina. I'm talking about all the major institutions. Everything we built. Now, what natives built any of these things? Natives ain't built none of this. I'm talking about, they got so many things. And then some of the Israelites will say, well, we the Moors. Look, natives domesticated no animals. Which animals was not domesticated by the by the natives? All of them. The only animal that a native domesticated, look, use of domesticated animals by early Virginia Indians. Virginia Indians did not domesticate animals. They did not domesticate animals, in large part because good candidates for domesticated animals did not live in the eastern woodlands or North America. The one exception was wolves, which the Indians domesticated into dogs. They'll go take a dog out of the ground and stuff after the mama gone. They'll sneak up on the dog hole and snatch one of their dogs about the hole and one of the puppies and then raise him. Now all he know is being fed by a native, so he gonna hang around them, and that's why you see dogs in the native villages that they be half wolves and stuff, you know. So that's what the natives domesticated, and then how did they didn't domesticate no sheeps. They didn't domesticate no sheeps. We had to have sheeps as part of our culture. That was part of our dietary. That was part of our diet. You know, was to have sheeps, and then we use sheeps for multi-purpose things, man. We would get clothes off the sheeps, man. I'm talking about wool, man, fresh, man. You know what I'm talking? We had fresh clothes, and then how that we domesticated animals, as you can read that story, man, about our father Jacob raising them sheeps and stuff, trying to get away from his stepdaddy. But these folks will tell you how the natives ain't domesticate nothing but an old dog that they done snatched out of a hole and stuff. Alright, so we know that the natives ain't domesticated nothing. What are some of the non-domesticated animals? They didn't domesticate the bisons. Bison never domesticated. The natives domesticated nothing, no animals. Nothing domesticated by the natives but old wolf dog that they might capture and stick their hand down in a hole and grab and stuff after the mama gone off somewhere. And that's the only animals that the natives had. Whereas we had sheep, goats, man, horses, and everything. All the stuff that the Jews brought to the Americas, the conquistadors, they got it from us. And that how they had been exposed to our culture. Our culture. But how the natives ain't made nothing. Man, it's like this here. Man, Israelites be saying, well, we the Moors. Well, we the Moors. How about, look, if you type in Moors from India and Moors from, man, they gonna tell you Moors from Sri Lanka, and then these are Moors, man. You can't tell these folks that these ain't no Moors, that this is a Moor. Now, some of you Israelites will say, that's us. That's us. That's us. Looking at dude, you will say, that's us. That's us. But that ain't us. Me and these folks from India, these Moors from India, and they had Moors all over the world. You know what I'm saying? Moors everywhere. And then how we Israelites wasn't everywhere. And then how there's no Moors in the BC days. And that's like how I explain our relationship to Kemet, to the Egyptians, and how bad it was. But these are the Moors in India. Man, I'm talking about we Israelites, man, got to start leaving these folks' heritage, man, alone, other folks' history alone, because they got pigmentation. Don't mean that we can go claim, look, black Moorish black kings of India. You know, when the Israelites go swabbing down, we the Moors, we the Moors, we the Moors, and you know what I'm saying, and we ain't got nothing to do with no Moors. Look, this is a Moor. These are the real Moors. You know what I'm saying? These are the real Moors. You know what I'm saying? And they even got a Moor fish. Let me see. Moor. Me type in Moor goldfish. Moor goldfish. Moor goldfish. You know what I'm saying? And then we're gonna see what the Moor goldfish look like. Moor goldfish, look. Black Moor. So Moor just really just mean color, black. And that how it's not just no ethnic group or no tribal peoples, and that how this really just a title. You know what I'm saying? And that how that the people from Spain and Morocco and from, you know, the megaherb and so forth, and them Edomite Jews that had pigmentation that I explained in plenty of videos. These folks right here had pigmentation, and these would be the Moors right here. Them be the Jews. These are the Sephardims, the Sephardi's, and how that they went to Spain and basically skipped and lived all across North Africa after Herd Edomite temple was destroyed. After they forefather Herd temple was destroyed, then they gonna go take off men into Spain. And then when they was kicked out of Spain by Ashkenazi through proxy through the Catholic Church, then they gonna go over here to the Americas, and then they gonna set it up, and then they gonna already know that we down here in Africa and stuff from being at the top of Africa doing trade with us in the Sahara, and then seeing all them houses and windows and horses and sheeps and cattle that we had. And then when they got over here from being chased by Ashkenazi through proxy, and then they got over to the Americas, then they gonna say, hey man, we know what some folks that can do this, that can build this place up. And then they come over here and get us. You see, and how then all this buildings and stuff pop up. You see, but that how none of them buildings and none of that stuff was before the transatlantic slave trade, and how the natives ain't built nothing. So you Hebrews that be trying to push them lies, talking about we natives and Hispanics and so forth, you telling a lie. You telling a bald-faced lie, and you've been tricking folks for a long time. But how that the Tanakh gonna make it hard for you Hebrews to lie on history when everything is plain to see. And then I'm gonna show how we left the promised land during the Babylonian wars. But we see how that this Moor thing and the natives and all that stuff, man, is hogwash. And we ain't got to be misled by that stuff no more, because clear history is here. And the Tanakh is the clearest history that you gonna get, cause it contains our sins and why we are in the position that we are in today. Man, the native ain't gonna be able to explain why the people from the transatlantic slave trade get captured and turned into some slaves. Have you ever asked a native why that happened? Well, why the people from the transatlantic slave trade get enslaved and then get brung over here? You know what I'm saying? Have you ever asked a native that? He ain't gonna have no answer. He ain't gonna have no answer, man, of why we get enslaved and get brung to the Americas. He gonna scratch them feathers on his head. He ain't gonna have no understanding of what's going on. All he know is that he got robbed, and that some folks come over here and robbed him and took his land and trying to claim his heritage. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he can understand, but he ain't gonna understand how the people from the transatlantic slave trade end up in the Americas as slaves, and then how he end up owning them as slaves too. Because like I say, the natives owners as slaves too. Man, I might even type that in, because if you Hebrews don't see it, you won't believe it. Look, natives own slaves. Yeah, man, they gonna tell you. Man, them folks gonna pull the dirt on them. Native owned slaves. Let's see what they see. Native American slave ownership. Man, they gonna run it down to you how the natives own slaves. Native American slave ownership. Africans were enslaved by natives from the colonial period until the United States Civil War. Now, you see that right there? Africans were, and that's what they call us Israelites, Africans. They always shifting our title around, but look, Africans were enslaved by Native Americans from the colonial period. Man, do this over. Africans were enslaved by natives from the colonial period men until the United States Civil War. You know what I'm saying? The interaction between Native Americans and Africans in the antebellum United States is complex, given that slavery played a significant role in the creation and construction of America. Man, I just showed you how we build the buildings and how the natives ain't built none of them buildings. them natives gonna want to get them some buildings built too. And that's why come they bought us as slaves. And how that these Negroes is trying to hang on to a native heritage, thinking that, they finna get some freedom that way. Man, it's like this one blind brother gonna tell some folks, then this what they do. They'll put a Israelite image, and then this is the hip thing going on. Now it's to have a beard and some locks, and whereas at first everybody had perms and jerry curls, we was trying to look like the Caucasians, you know what I'm saying? How we was trying to look like them, but now how we trying to look like ourselves and how they exploit this. And this is supposed to be truthful because you got his image up here with some locks and some beards looking like this. But how he's so far men away from the truth. Listen to this dude.
Even know why it was called slavery, because it was technically employment.
He said slavery was employment.
Did everything out here, top, bottom, and helped the pale faces.
We helped them now.
Get it done. On top of that.
And he using native terms.
We went into trade deals
faces
with them. That's what I mean by deals. We went into deals with them, but the tables got turned.
He say that the people from the transatlantic slave trade, you know what I'm saying, was here in the Americas. They didn't know how to build nothing, but had all this land, and that when the Europeans come over with all the building construction materials, that we got tricked out the land. That ain't sitting right, man. That we got to stop being stupid like that. That's real stupid. That's real stupid. He's saying that the people that we are indigenous to America, that we didn't have nothing, we didn't have crap, and that we had the land, but we didn't have nothing else. We didn't have no domesticated animals, no houses or nothing. And that the Europeans come over, and that how did they bring all that stuff and then tricked us out the land and then built all that stuff. That's basically what they've been saying, and that's what them folks gonna say. And look, he even got a native in the background and stuff. Look, don't look nothing like them folks. Now the natives got to be loving this. They got to be loving this. How that we so confused, and how that we gonna be saved, and how mighty y'all gonna save us, and how we trying to save them. And then that's what Israelites are trying to do: save the natives before we get saved. That's what they doing, trying to save the natives before we get saved. And how we wish the natives success and want them to prosper and do right, and that how these Israelites latch on to anybody culture that that is not part of the transatlantic slave trade, and how that they run from that and don't want nothing to do with the transatlantic slave trade and look at it as horror and disgust and an abomination to them. But how that they don't know is that we're the Israelites, and that we were serving our punishment from Almighty Yah, and that how we had that punishment coming. See, this individual don't know nothing about biblical history, and then when they do learn about biblical history, they learn from them camps, watching them on the corners, hooping and hollering. And this what Almighty Yah say. This what Almighty Yah say, man, about his message. Man, if you go to Isaiah 42. If you go to Isaiah 42, now this is what Almighty Yah say about his message. Now this is Almighty Yah messenger. This is coming from our creators. You know what I'm saying? Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. Now Almighty Yah say his soul delighted, mean in his servant. Look, behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighted. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Just bring some truth. Just Israelite truth, showing what happened. The only truth on the face of this earth is that the Israelites broke the covenant during the Babylonian wars, in relations to that. That's the only truth. Almighty Yah gonna be the only truth, and his way of worship is the only truth, and how all history come off that. Look, behold my servant, whom I uphold mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. Look, he shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. So Almighty Yah servant, you ain't gonna hear him hooping around, hollering and stuff in the streets, on street corners and stuff. And then if you listen to those Israelites on the street corner, man, you're gonna see that they mostly that they pushing Jewish history, not that they mostly, and that they pushing Jewish myths. Man, they may pull some of these Israelites up. Man, they be on the corners. Man, they be on the corners, and it's like this one dude, vocab Malone, how he done spent his whole career chasing down them Israelites. You get this devil right here. Man, I post to him all the time. Man, he blocked me. He don't never repost to me. And he don't want to never have a conversation with me, man, about this Israelite history. Because I ain't playing with this Israelite history. You know? But look, some of them Israelites, man, be on the corner. Man, they be on the corner, man, and they be wanting to be right and stuff. And they would rather be out there and be trying to push some truth, but how they just out there just really having a good time, man, just socializing, having a good time. You know, that's how we Israelites was in the Tanakh. We'll sit on the corner, man, at the gate. We'll sit at the gate, you know, everybody coming through and just to see what's going on and stuff. And it's just a legal way to hang out and stuff, and then to push the Bible and stuff. And then how them Israelites don't know no history, and how that they be using Jewish history. Mean they be using Jewish history. I just did a video, man, about this brother, how the Jews just went and got him, and then how that they snuck into the land from the 60s when the devils was burning us up over here, and how that they snuck across the borders and made it to the promised land, and then how that they live in the desert and not fulfilling scriptures about us living in the mountainous part, and how the enemies is using them, make them convert to Judaism and become citizens, and how we ain't gonna go for that when our time come, and how that they gonna put us in the mountainous part and leave us alone, and how we ain't gonna have to be no citizens and serve in the Israeli army and stuff. And how that ain't gonna be forced upon us real Israelites. Man, I made a video, man, about how that they gonna have to settle this Israelite issue one day, and it's best that they settle this Israelite issue through the Israelite Brotherhood, you know, because we can, you know, get this Israelite issue settled. But look, Hebrews, we see that no Israelites came to the Americas before the transatlantic slave trade, and that how we are not indigenous and native to the Americas, and that how no Caucasians come from Europe and tricked us out of no land and then tricked us into building it. Nah, man, they didn't go down like that, and we're gonna have to stop believing in that stuff. And when people start pushing it, we Native Americans and stuff, you need to ask them what houses and what animals did the natives domesticate, because we domesticated sheeps and cattle and had houses and brick houses and so forth. And that whereas all this in the Americas, men before the Europeans come, and that how that you ain't gonna find it nowhere. Nowhere. Alright, Hebrews, let's show that how the Israelites ran into Africa. You know, that's the best thing to do. You know, let me see if I can walk some of this down. Now we know that from Exodus, when we exodus Egypt, I explained in a lot of videos how we Israelites was tricked out the covenant by the Egyptians, and how that they had to do trade on the other side of the promised land. And long as we had that covenant, we was blocking the Egyptians from doing trade with their Mesopotamia family. And then how that new culture that Almighty Yah gave us was to extinguish the Egyptian and the Canaanite culture, which would have saved the whole earth if we would have got rid of the Egyptian and the Canaanite culture. And how that we was that light, we was the light. And then how that we was supposed to bring all nations to us, draw all nations to us, and then how Almighty Yah will was to be expressed through us, but how did the Egyptians tricked us and didn't want us to worship Almighty Yah and the real Creator, and how did they tricked us into worshiping their religion, and then how we was eventually driven out the land. I explained how the Sephardi's got into our heritage. I explained how the Sephardi's are Sephardims and how that they are Amorites and how that they basically was in our heritage from the beginning, from the time that we exodus and start coming to the promised land, and how that they tricked us and so forth, and then how we made them servants in our congregation, and then eventually in the temple, and they would translate into the Nethinims, and how that they were Amorites and the peoples that we didn't destroy, and then how Solomon put them on blast. Man, it's like Solomon. Man, a lot of people try to build a history of Solomon wickedness because Solomon made it with a lot of women and so forth, and they try to say the Israelites ran off the promised land during Solomon time. As I explained, the Israelites couldn't do the covenant off the promised land, that it was impossible, that the only way that the covenant to be mistakenly done off the promised land is from the peoples that we Israelites abandoned our heritage to during the Babylonian Wars. And I'm going to try to show how the Sephardims are them, the Sephardi Jews. And we Israelites abandon our heritage to them. That would be these folks too. That would be these folks too. That would be them folks in Spain, and that would come to the Americas. And then sometimes who Israelites be confused with that say the black people own slaves, and it was the Sephardim, the Sephardi. You see him? You see him? Meaning them black Arabs. Them black Arabs, the Sephardim. Meaning he probably had straight hair, but how you couldn't tell them, apart from everybody else. And then how that they would have pigmentation. And then how, they would be in the Americas. And then how the Israelites wouldn't know. Israelites wouldn't know. And then they say that them black folks that own black folks, when it was really the Sephardi's that had pigmentation, that owned the slaves and so forth. I just showed how one of they synagogues, this is a Sephardi synagogue, and this is the first one in the United States, to get built and stuff. This one right here. This one. That one right there, that Turio, you know what I'm saying? In Newport, Rhode Island. The Sephardi's built that. Ashkenazi would come in and build them some synagogues too, but how that the Sephardi's, they had pigmentation, built the first synagogues, the first structures and so forth. All right, Hebrews, let's them folks was Amorites, and they were Amorites. They were Amorites, and they come from Sephardim. I explained about Sipper, wild tax, and our whole capitalistic with contracts and negotiations and contracts and deals come from them and Sipper, and how that they created the whole Western civilization. They're responsible for the creation of the whole Western civilization, even its words, the Romanist language, and then Ashkenazi with the Germanic language, and they will create English and so forth. But how did them folks was here in the Americas and so forth, and Israelites get confused by them owning slaves and say the black folks own slaves, but them people was placed in our land in 722 BC by the king of Assyria. And then, they would stay in our land all the way till we was driven out like 134 years later. And then how I explained it after we left Egypt, and then we got tricked by their people, the Gabonites, tricked Joshua and them, and then how they became the Nethinims, and how that they would be in a close association with our heritage, as I could show that the strangers that come from Samaria, who is them, came to the Passover dinner under King Hezekiah in 715 BC, like 7 years after that they was placed. And then how that when we was eventually ran out and chased out into Africa, all the tribes, because it wasn't no 10 lost tribes, which this ruckus about us being in Americas come from. You know, them folks writing books and then Israelites accepting history outside the Tanakh. And then how did them folks, man, uh, uh, got our heritage and then, would portray to be Israelites, pretend to be Israelites after we was driven out the land. And then how we went into Africa abandoning the covenant to them, and how we went into Africa to do some Egyptian religion. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. All right, here goes Seb Hardy's being placed in our land in 722 BC. This is the quietest kept history on the face of this earth, and they don't want to never talk about this. They don't want to never talk about this. You know, the Israelite Brotherhood show how Ashkenazi and the Sephardists got in our heritage. All right. Second Kings, chapter 17, verse 24. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuddar and from Abel and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And as you read, you're going to see that they tried to follow the stuff that they did in Samaria, because they went and got one of the priests whom they carried away from Samaria and dwelled him in Bethel and taught them how they should fear the Elohim. And then as you read, you'll see that they kept doing what was in Samaria, where the northern tribe was. And then I explained through plenty of videos how the northern tribe was destroyed, the military was destroyed, and then that how the people was still there, and how the military was taken away during the Assyrian times when they was fighting against Ashkenazi, who was the Scythians, who chased us into Africa under the name Chaldean. But look, these Sephardists, so these nations feared the Elohim and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as they did their fathers, so do they unto this day. So they will be in the land all the way up to we were driven out. But if you look at Second Chronicles 30, you'll see that, this is 7 years after the so-called Assyrian captivity, that all the Israelites were still at home. Look, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of the Elohim at Jerusalem to keep the Passover unto the Elohim Yah of Israel. For the king had taken counsel and his princes and all the congregation in Jerusalem to keep the Passover in the second month, for they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree and make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto the Elohim Yah of Israel at Jerusalem, for they had not done it in such a sort as it was written. So let's look and see where Beersheba to Dan is, because King Hezekiah sent the letter to gather them Israel, and then this showed that it wasn't no 10 lost tribes, because this is 7 years after the Assyrians supposed to had took all the tribes. Every time somebody else that is not an Israelite explain our heritage, they gon' create some falsehood, and it's like them people created falsehood to try to cover up the heritage that we abandoned to them. But if you go to you go to right here. All right, see, look, you can see right there from Beersheba. So this is where King Hezekiah sent the letter from Beersheba all the way to Dan, all the way to Dan, all the way up there, for them to come to the Passover. And this is 7 years after the so-called Assyrian captivity. How everybody's still at home, and stuff. And he gonna even tell you, look. So the post went with the letters. This is Second Chronicles 30, verse 6. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Elohim Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remain of you that are escaped out of the hands of the kings of Assyria. Look, you see that S on the kings of Assyria. So we escaped the Assyrians. And from then on out, Israelites at home. Israelites at home. You know what I'm saying? And then how we will be driven out 134 years later by the Babylonians. You know, and then as you read, he gonna tell you that all the tribes still here. He just said we escaped. So then as you read down to 30 verse 10, so the post passed from city to city throughout the countries of Ephraim, Manasseh, even to Zebulun, but they laughed them to scorn and mocked them because we was on the Egyptian religion all the way from when Jeroboam brung it out of Egypt after the death of Solomon, and then how that we didn't get it cleaned up to King Josiah cleaned it up, and that'd be King Hezekiah's great grandson, and then how the Egyptians would kill him and put us on Egyptian religion, and then we would go into Africa, and there we would be enslaved, and then we would come over here to the Americas and build all this stuff. You see what I'm saying? See, we wasn't over here in the Americas and couldn't build all this stuff. You see, that don't make no sense. That don't make no sense, and we ain't gonna lay down like that. We ain't gonna let these misguided Negroes push that false history, and then, you know, ain't nobody gonna step up to it and answer it, and that's what the Israelite Brotherhood is doing. Look, nevertheless, the verse of Asher and Manasseh and Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. But as you see, you know, all the tribes still there, and then the tribes not mentioned during King Hezekiah time gonna be mentioned during King Josiah time. That's his great grandson. So you know, if they are around during King Josiah time, that our next problem would be the Babylonians, and then I can show that the Babylonians chased us all into Africa. But here go those Jews, the Sephardi's coming to the Passover dinner, practicing our heritage. You know what I'm saying? Williams, he's still mentioning the tribes over here too. So if you look, you know, when you get down to 18, for a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun had cleansed themselves, yet they did eat the Passover, otherwise that it was written. So they come to the Passover. But here go the strangers that was placed in 722 BC, the Sephardims coming to the Passover dinner. And all the congregation of Judah, this is 2 Chronicles 30 verse 25. And all the congregation of Judah with the priests and the Levites and all the congregation that come out of Israel and the strangers that come out of the land of Israel that dwelt in Judah rejoice. So that's going to be them coming to the Passover dinner to like 134 years later when we was driven out the land. Look, we can show King Josiah clean Israel up too of the Egyptian religion, because we was on Egyptian religion. King Hezekiah didn't go through the kingdom cleaning it up, and then how King Josiah did, because it was a prophecy for him to do so. You know, this why come them the New World Order folks love the Egyptian paraphernalia and images and so forth, because that's what caused the Israelites to break the covenant to allow them to have the power that they have today. You know? All right. If you go to, all right, Chronicles 34. All right, this is gonna be King Josiah. And Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign. He was a prophecy king, and then, you know, like I say, all the tribes that wasn't mentioned during his great granddaddy time, they're gonna be mentioned during his time, like Simon and Naphtali, you know, which showed that they was still around. If they was around and escaped during King Hezekiah time, and then they be mentioned during King Josiah time, showed that they was around and didn't go to Assyria and so forth. So that's how it would be impossible for us to had made it to the Americas when we were still at home. And the next event will be the Babylonian Wars. And I can show that all the Israelites ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. So these Hebrews are still at home, and King Josiah cleaned up our kingdom of the Egyptian religion, which would cause the Egyptians to come kill him and then put us on the Egyptian religion, and then we would go into Africa. Everybody, all the tribes. You see all them tribes mentioned. I mean, if you go to Second Kings verse 25, this is during the Babylonian Wars. We all being chased out. The decree ain't got to mention the northern kingdom tribes no more because we done accepted the Egyptian religion. It's over with. Look, this is 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 26. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldees. Now, our whole army went into Africa. I just did a video about that. That if the whole Israelite army go into Africa, how the promised land is up for grabs. And that's like when the exiles come back from Babylon, they got killed off so fast because there wasn't no army there to protect them. I mean, they had sheep herders and folks that couldn't fight. How the army had went into Africa during the Babylonian wars when they came and besieged Judah, because they can run across the rest of the northern kingdom because there wasn't no army there. The Assyrians took them off and got them destroyed and so forth. And then how that when the Babylonians came, that everybody would go into Judah. That's why King Hezekiah enlarged the water supply, bringing underground water up to the peoples and so forth. And then how when the Babylonians eventually came during the book of Jeremiah, after King Josiah was put to death, that's King Hezekiah's great grandson, after the Egyptians killed him, then we would go into Africa to do the Egyptian religion. And there we was enslaved from Africa. And it's like this, man, a lot of these Africans is trying to do the same thing that the natives doing, trying to claim a Israelite heritage, and then how that no Hebrews went to South Africa to live, and then how that we was laden with sin. It is impossible to be on the continent of Africa, and we knew about Africa because that's where we got our stones. And then two tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim, were part Egyptian, part Hamites. I can show that they mama was an Egyptian, and then that was one of the reasons why Pharaoh gave Joseph Asenath, the priest of our own daughter, knowing that it would doom us later on, which it did, and how we eventually went back to the Egyptian religion and then went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah to be enslaved. The whole army, the people that would defend the land. So that's why when the exiles come back from Babylon, the Greeks, after they destroyed the Persians, wouldn't have no problem coming in and taking land. Now this is what the Israelites be foolish, because they know if ain't no army in the promised land and then invaders coming, that they gonna take the land from the people. They ain't got nobody to fight for the land, but for some reason they gonna let you have the land. That don't make no sense. If an invader come and conquer the country and ain't no army there, he finna move his people there, and they finna take the land. They finna kill you and take your land, and your land is taken forever. And then that's what happened to the exiles. And then, the people that we had abandoned our heritage to, that was in our land, they got all the spoils, and then that's like Ashkenazi gonna come into the picture. Oh, but let me get this fringe thing in, and how Hebrews say, oh, because they got fringes. The natives got fringes. The natives had fringes. And they're Israelites because of their fringes. Foolish. This white dude up here, this Caucasian that got captured, that was in Egypt, had fringes on. He walking around with some fringes. Everybody got fringes on. Look, buckskins are often trimmed with a fringe, originally a functional detail to allow the garment to shed rain and to dry faster when wet, because the fringe acted as a series of wickers to disperse the water or quails. Buckskin derived from deerskin clothing worn by Native Americans. Now, we had sheep and wool and leather and all type of stuff, and how that we ain't just walk around in no animal skins like them folks did, and how we had cotton and crops and everything. So, we could never be the natives, and we was never in the Americas before the transatlantic slave trade, because we knew how to build houses and so forth, and them folks didn't. All right, so let me see. Now we know that King Josiah was killed when we got back on the Egyptian religion, and we were driven off into Africa, and that's what the book of Jeremiah is talking about. And if you go to Jeremiah chapter 44, we're gonna sum this up. I think I made a good point that we couldn't have been in the Americas exposed to all this technology of building and then not build nothing and then wait till the Europeans come over and trick us out the land and then start building. That don't make no sense. We ain't getting down like that. Look, then all the men, we get chased into Africa because of this act right here. Then all the men, this is during the Babylonian Wars. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 44, verse 15. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. We said that the Babylonians was coming, tearing the land up and chasing us out, is because we wasn't doing the Egyptian religion. And then there's going to be Ashkenazi come chase us into Africa under the name Chaldean. I got videos explaining how they come into the picture. But you Israelites, they be trying to say that we the natives, and we the natives, and all them folks, you're full of crap. You're full of crap, and we're going to have to start repelling that stuff, and we're going to have to show that it's impossible for the Israelites, man, to be natives when we had a building technology, man, when we can build houses and so forth. And we can build houses. We can build houses. We can build houses. Man, we had, sheep with goats. Man, we had all kind of stuff, man. And then how no Israelites was in the Americas, man, before the transatlantic slave trade, and how that's impossible because of the technology and the things that we can build, and that how we had axles. Look, you see that how we was exposed to that Egyptian wheel and so forth. Well, we had chariots and so forth going into the promised land, and how we had axles. You see that Matt Tuck, and how Ephraim and them made fun of the post that went to them and so forth, and that's what we had. And we had axles, man. We had to take a axle in the wheel to make a cart roll, and then we had domesticated animals to pull that, and that's something that the natives didn't have. So it would have been impossible for us to be natives. Now, what could possibly had happened is that one of them natives raped one of them slaves. When one of them natives raped one of them slaves, and then the slave can go back. The slave can go back and find out, about the natives, that raped his parents. And he can find out about the natives that raped his parents, and then possibly try to make a claim through that. But I say that ain't legit and straight, because we Israelites, and whatever that that happened to us in the Americas, is because we broke the covenant for the Egyptian religion, and that how we can't be claiming all these folks' heritage, and how we got a golden heritage that the whole world want a part of, but except us. That's crazy. How everybody want to be Israelites all around the world. Everybody claim an Israelite heritage all around the world. Everybody claim an Israelite heritage, but how the real Israelites reject their heritage. They reject their heritage and claim some other folks, natives, and all kind of stuff. You know, that junk is crazy, man. We got to stop doing that, man, because we got a golden heritage. If we can show easily how we the Israelites, and that can't be changed. That cannot be changed. So y'all gonna have to lay it on down and come on into this Israelite heritage. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood, and then how we ain't gonna keep getting tricked on this Israelite heritage, believing these scoundrels making up this false history, talking about we need to see Israelite got to make a comparison by by the Bible, biblical history. You know, you got to make a comparison by Tanakh history to see, man, if it line up with the Tanakh history. But because if it don't line up with the Tanakh history, then it ain't gonna be right. Look, Tanakh gonna make it hard for you Hebrews to lie on history when everything is plain to see. That's like it's plain to see that we had wheels, carts, houses with windows, can build palaces and all kind of stuff. And then how that the natives didn't have that, and that how we couldn't have been indigenous to America, exposed to all those skills, and then wait till the conquistadors come over with it, and then start, watching them build everything. So they trying to say that the that if the black folks is indigenous to America, that they ain't built nothing, cause the natives ain't built nothing. So man, we can't lay down like that, and we can't let them sweep us under the rug like that. Them dudes be confused, and they don't be knowing what's going on. Like I say, they'll take a old Israelite image and put it up, and then for some reason you think it's supposed to be righteous and truthful just because the image there and stuff. Man, we got to grow up. Shalom, Hebrews, a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. We are not the natives, and we are not indigenous to the Americas.